are we headed towards a civil war? Like, I don't like to get ahead of myself, like, Tim Pool and others like to do, but it certainly seems like we have some battle lines drawn. Here we've got all of the states they're aligning with Texas. Tim Pool did well to point out that A24 did get their map wrong. But if you're confused as to what this is all about, well, this should be a rather succinct explanation of what's happening.
Texas is not backing down in its fight against the Biden administration over the border. The state is in a legal battle over its use of razor wire along the border. Meantime, a plan in Congress to deal with the border looks like it's going to fail. There are reports it lost support from Senate Republicans. Fox's Rebecca Castor reports.
And one of the strongest acts of defiance for a modern-day governor, Greg Abbott has declared the border crisis an invasion and invoked Texas's constitutional right to self-defense.
The authors of the Constitution knew there would be times when the federal government would not live up to its duty. Texas has a right, as a state, to stop criminals from coming into our state.
So if you guys are not familiar with this whole case, essentially, Texas has been sort of upset with how Customs and Border Patrol has been handling the situation at the border, because they basically been saying illegal immigrants can just walk right through. Literally, Customs and Border Patrol is no longer there to keep illegal immigrants out. They're now there to let them in and then guide them towards shelter and other amenities in the United States. And, after a while, Texas has kind of gotten fed up with it, in part because they're sort of running out of the capacity to house all these individuals who are just coming in unabated in an unregulated fashion into the United States. So, he started shipping people out over to sanctuary cities and sanctuary states like New York. And now, as many people are saying, immigration is no longer a no, they're not saying that. What people are now saying, and I think kind of rightly so, is that basically every state is a border state now, because people aren't just going into border states and then just sticking around. They're now going into border states and then being sent to various states that are not border states, just because Texas doesn't really have the capacity to just have in unlimited amounts of immigrants. So that is very tense, because, Greg Abbott has wanted to put in barriers, to like physical barriers that prevent migrants from arriving into Texas, and the federal government has tried to stop them at every turn. Now the federal government has basically had a big legal W, because the Supreme Court basically said that it is up to the federal government how the national border is handled, and Greg Abbott or anyone in Texas does not have the right to overrule what the federal government wants to do. But Greg Abbott, and I think probably rightly, I don't know, I don't have the biggest grasp on constitutional law, but I would say probably rightly, is saying, well, no, I have the right to determine how many, how immigration is handled here in the state of Texas. That's led to some very tense things, right? He's put up a bunch of razor wires to keep illegal immigrants out. And then, Customs and Border Patrol are coming over and they're cutting down that same wire. So it's a very, very tense situation.
Losing trust in Biden's border agents, the Texas National Guard has taken over control of one area of the border popular for illegal crossings. There's also been debate about the use of razor wire to stop migrants, with the Supreme Court giving approval Monday for the Biden admin to start cutting the wire.
It's not making people's lives safer. It's actually making it harder for law enforcement at the border to do their job.
Despite
That's interesting. See, I thought it was law enforcement's job to enforce the law. If you're crossing into the United States illegally, enforcing the law would be either detaining or repelling the people who are coming into the country. I mean, that just seems natural. That just seems accurate to me. So that's like a very bewildering take. Also, some people are saying that Karine Jean-Pierre, she did additionally say that it's not making anyone safer, and that is puzzling as well, because while I don't think there's like necessarily a linear correlation, and I should probably research this before I say anything about it, but I don't know that there's a linear correlation between illegal immigrants coming into the country, and violence or murders or things like that. I will say, I do think that there is a troubling amount of violence that has been committed by specifically gang-related illegal immigrants, people who are members of cartels. But it's not, I don't think it's necessarily accurate to say that, it doesn't make people in the country safer if you stop illegal immigration. I don't necessarily understand that take.
It's actually making it harder for law enforcement at the border to do their job.
Despite the legal blow, Abbott says Texas will hold the line, while in Washington, lawmakers continue to hash out an immigration reform package.
We have the outlines of a deal. We've had it for several days. It's 90+% written.
But will passing it rely on approval from former President Donald Trump? As insiders suggest, some Republicans don't want to lose their top issue during election season.
I don't agree on that, and the reason I don't agree on that is, one, we have a constitutional responsibility to be able to protect the country and its safety. The things that are in this bill, Donald Trump would actually want to be able to have as president on this.
Right now, further emergency aid for Ukraine is contingent on new border policy being passed. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox 4 News.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. And here's the whole list, by the way, because I'm sure many of the viewers here are in the United States. You can check and see whether or not your state representative, state governor, is in support of Greg Abbott, because actually they drafted this joint statement here announcing that they are aligned with Greg Abbott and want to support him in his fight against the federal government. Washington, D.C. This is from RGA.org, by the way, Republican Governors Association. 25 Republican governors released the following joint statement in support of Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Texas's constitutional right to self-defense. The statement comes as the Biden administration continues to attack Texas and refuses to take action or responsibility for the crisis at the southern border. Quote, President Biden and his administration have left Americans in our country completely vulnerable to unprecedented illegal immigration pouring across the southern border. Instead of upholding the rule of law and securing the border, the Biden administration has attacked and sued Texas for stepping up to protect American citizens from historic levels of illegal immigrants, deadly drugs like fentanyl, and terrorists entering our country. I do want to point out that I think that the fentanyl is probably the deadliest part of the illegal immigration, not necessarily the immigrants themselves. Some are violent, but I think the majority are not. I just want to make that clear. We stand in solidarity with our fellow governor, Greg Abbott, and the state of Texas in utilizing every tool and strategy, including razor wire fences, to secure the border. We do it in part because the Biden administration is refusing to enforce immigration laws already on the books and is illegally allowing mass parole across America of migrants who entered our country illegally. The authors of the U.S. Constitution made clear that in times like this, states have a right to self-defense under Article 4, Section 4, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution. Because the Biden administration has abdicated its constitutional compact duties to the states, Texas has every legal justification to protect the sovereignty of our states and our nations. Signatories include Governor Kay Ivey of Alabama. Is that Alabama? Yeah, Alabama. Governor Mike Dunleavy of Arkansas. Governor Sarah Sanders of Arizona. AR. What's AR? I don't know what Arkansas. I don't know what AR is. Governor. That's actually pretty bad. No. Sorry, Governor. No, I think I get it. Governor Mike Dunleavy is AK is the last guy, I think. Governor Sarah Sanders of Arkansas, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia, Governor Brad Little of Idaho, Governor Eric Holcomb of Indiana, Governor Kim Reynolds of Iowa, Governor Jeff Landry of Louisiana, Governor Tate Reeves of Mississippi, Governor Mike Parsons of Missouri, Governor Greg Gianforte, I guess that's how you say it, of Montana, I think that is, Governor Jim Pillen of Nebraska, Governor Joe Lombardo of Nevada, Governor Chris Sununu of New Hampshire. That's an interesting one. Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota, Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio, Governor Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma, Governor Henry McMaster of South Carolina, Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota, Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee, Governor Spencer Cox of Utah, Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, Governor Jim Justice of West Virginia, and Governor Mark Gordon of Wyoming. So they all banded together like the characters in Trolls. Now, it's really interesting because it's we don't really know how far this is going to go. Will this spill into violence? We're not entirely sure. And to what extent will those other states support Texas? We're not sure about that either. Now, Greg Abbott did put out a statement after he lost that Supreme Court battle. He says, we can win. Now, he responded to that completely, uninformed. I guess he does say uninformed. He does, kind of like respond to that, just awful and I think deceptive response by Karine Jean-Pierre. So let's see. Abbott fired back on America's Newsroom Thursday, calling it a, quote, very uninformed comment on her part. There's really only one person in America not doing their job, and that's the President of the United States, who's not enforcing immigration laws. Well, apparently Mayorkas is in charge of handling the border as well, and he also has not been doing anything, so it's not entirely Joe Biden directly. You can't say it's just Joe Biden. Also, as she has already been called out in the president and other Democrats in media, they have cast a false narrative about some people dying on the border that apparently Texas denied Border Patrol access to. That's been completely debunked. The U.S. Supreme Court sided with the Biden administration on Monday in a case. So we've already gone through all of that already. So it's fascinating to see in which direction this goes. Will this turn into some sort of hot conflict? Will this turn into some sort of civil war? We're not really sure. Hopefully that this is something where the federal government will just acquiesce, but they don't really seem that keen on doing that. So if there's any sort of resolution to it, it's not seeming like it's going to be the federal government backing down unless it's through threat of force. Now, we don't know if there's going to be some sort of threat of force. We also don't know if Greg Abbott is eventually going to back down. Hopefully he doesn't, but we will have to see. So hopefully this does not turn into some sort of hot conflict. Hopefully the federal government reverses course. I'm not sure that this will happen, but I think that would probably be the best option here. I am pro-migration, but the only migration I support is legal migration. If you want to change which people can come into the United States of America, then maybe you should change the law, right? Make it illegal for these people to come in to the United States of America in the ways that they are arriving. Without that, arrest the people who are breaking the law. Just do that. That is how the United States should operate. This is how a nation of laws, of law and order, operates and behaves. And I think it's a bit odd that there's any expectation that we do anything other than that.